to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I've got a statement that I read before every meeting to help set expectations for those in the audience who are participating. Well, first of all, we're glad everyone's here attending tonight's meeting. And I've forgotten my statement. I can't go off memory. So basically, if you have any cell phones or any tablets or any other electronic devices that are potentially going to make a noise, please put them on silent or turn them off. We're the Independence Township Planning Commission. We're comprised of 7 members when we have a full board, who are appointed by the supervisor, confirmed by the township board. We have a numerous list of tasks that we're responsible for, including reviewing applications for rezonings, for text amendments, for site plans, for special uses, etc. Also with us this evening is our township planner, Brian Ottman, our township planning consultant, Dick Carlisle, and our township engineering consultant, Jason Longhurst. Sorry, Jason. I've only known you for 20 plus years. With no Eck and Frouse. At this time, I'd like to ask the secretary to conduct a roll call, please.
Mr. Galley.
Here.
Mr. Mazza. Mr. Patel.
Here.
Mr. Ritchie.
Here.
Chairman Savadat.
Here.
Ms. Tully here.
So we don't have a full board tonight, but we do have 5 that represents a quorum, so we can conduct business this evening. So we will move forward with the agenda as presented. Next item is on the agenda is item D, which is a review of the agenda. Does anyone have any modifications that they want to make to the agenda, or are we ready to proceed with the one that's been presented to us this evening?
I'll move we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor of approving the agenda as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no one, the agenda is approved 5-0. So those of you in the audience who have the agenda, that's the document that I'm going to go off of tonight. Next item on the agenda is item E, for public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone attending this evening, either remotely or in person, who wishes to make a comment on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? We will start with those in attendance in person. Seeing no one, I will now ask anyone attending remotely if you wish to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. Last call. Hearing no one, we move on.
Hold on. Just
Yes.
one comment by me. Just for the record, since Judy said Mr. Mazza was absent, I just wanted to point out, and I know, Brian, if you want to elaborate, that he did, it was announced at the last township board meeting that he had resigned his position due to he's moved out of the township. So.
Okay, thank you. We are still able to conduct business though, because we have 5 members. So next item is item F, public hearings. We have one public hearing with us before us this evening. It's item F1, PC file number 2023-008. Petitioners Barbad BP LLC, 6480 Sashabaw Road, Clarkston, Michigan. Parcel number 0827201013. Zoning is MS Motor Vehicle Service Station, also under the Sashabaw Town Center Overlay District. And the petitioner is requesting special land use and amended final site plan approval in order to construct a new convenience store. Mr. Carlisle, are you going to make the presentation this evening? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I think most members have seen this plan numerous times before in different derivations. As you probably are aware, there is an existing gas station on this corner, the southeast corner of Walden and Sashabaw. That is, I think, approximately 1,600 square feet. The site itself is 0.76, about 3/4 of an acre. As you can see, that's the plan is being projected. This plan, similar plans have been approved by our planning commission in the past, but I think the applicant has reconsidered and rethought what they want to do on this site, and now presenting a revised site plan. The reason it requires a special land use approval is because it's in the Sashba overlay district. So that is, I did not elaborate to a great deal in that because we've had this before several times. But that also has to be part of your motion of approval. It's going to be replaced by a building that's a little over 4,400 square feet. They've eliminated any drive-through that I think we had previously seen. And it's going to be a combination convenience store. And what they label as a restaurant, which I've raised some questions about what they really actually mean. The curb cuts are existing, now we have the access out onto Walden Road also, which provides some relief to the site. So, from the standpoint of circulation, it's much improved over their existing conditions, even with the existing station by having that Walden Road access. The existing pump islands are going to remain in the same spot. Unfortunately, they have had to get a variance in the past of their previous site plans for the build two line, which is a 25 to 50 feet build two line in the Sashba overlay district. So that variance is going to have to be renewed. I wouldn't think there's going to be any problem with our Board of Appeals because it's somewhat, I think based on their, how they're going to try to, their site circulation and retain their existing pumps, very difficult to meet that build two line. And that was evident in the past with previous variances that were granted. I think that overall this rearrangement does improve the whole site maneuverability quite a bit. Our biggest question that came out of this is the labeling on the site plan, which labels in some of the internal floor space, and then also the lack of floor plan. The floor plan that was submitted was incorrect, was just vague. I mean, it didn't, that really raised the questions for me. I did attempt to call the applicant, but did not receive a return phone call. And things happened, so perhaps that the applicant didn't get that call from me, but to clarify that. But, so we really need to have usable floor area clarified in this restaurant use. The reasons for that are clarifying parking calculations. So that clearly is an issue that needs to be clarified. There were no issues with the landscape plan. I did need some clarification that the lighting plan met the revised lighting regulations and that the canopy lights were going to be recessed. The site plan does not indicate a new ground sign, although I do believe one is intended, at least it was before. And the number of wall signs, the number of wall signs at 4 would not be permitted by ordinance. So those were the major issues. They are proposing to meet the design center guidelines, but are indicating that they're going to put a seating area out front. But again, there was a lack of clarity on the plans, just exactly what and where that was going to be. So I see that the formatting on my review came out really kind of weird. Anyway, these are the items that that need to be addressed before amended final site plan and special land use approval is granted. Those are the items that I mentioned that we need clarification on. So are there any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Carlisle? I've got a couple. And I've only driven by the site 500 times since we last saw this item. The existing sign, very tall sign that was made non-conforming.
Yeah.
Was that taken down?
In process.
Yeah, it's in process. We have a demolition permit.
They have a
for it.
demolition permit that's been
Okay.
filed.
We spent a lot of time talking about that
Yeah.
sign the last times before us, and it's pretty clear that the direction that we wanted was for that.
Yeah.
The elimination of that, so that would, any action that we took on this would be consistent here as well. Also, Dick, are they proposing, just for the record, this is an existing curb cut that's
It is
gonna be-
now.
It is now, that's gonna be eliminated.
No.
No,
No, it was
Still there, okay.
installed. They received approval from the road.
I'm looking at the screen and it's not
Yeah,
very clear.
when the additional improvements were made to Sashbaugh Road, in particular to the intersection, it really, it greatly affected the access to their station. And they did proceed to get approval from the road commission to install the new access to Walden Road.
Okay,
So that has been approved.
okay. I was going off the screen and it's a little misleading what
Okay.
I'm looking at there, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
When we last approved it, Brian, going off my memory, was there a drive-through proposed with that?
There was.
There
Yeah.
was, yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
So
And
I-
they have decided to eliminate that, which
Yeah.
I think is a huge improvement in their submittal.
Yeah, I think what I see here, with issues aside, I'm assuming they can address any issues that we have, that we
Well,
identify.
I would like some clarification, because I think this vagueness that they've,
Mhm.
have presented with the identification on the plan for restaurant, if it's simply just grab and go, no problem.
Mhm.
But the terminology of using a restaurant, takes this to a whole different level.
Right, right. Before I ask the applicant to add to the presentation, Mr. Longhurst, do you have anything to add from an engineering standpoint?
Yeah, just a couple items. As with always, most of our letter is focusing on items we're gonna be looking for with the construction drawings. I think the first item was pointing out what you just addressed there, showing that approach on Walden Road as an existing condition with the topographic information that goes along with it. The work along Sashbaugh in the right-of-way is gonna be subject to the road commission review and approval. We did note that the pathway along the frontage there is in deteriorated condition and will require replacement as part of the project, so they'll need to incorporate that into the plans. I think the loading zone does conflict with a two-way drive aisle, but I think in past submittals, they had indicated that that would be an off-hours loading and unloading, so we just pointed that out again. There were some grading comments that we noted. The site generally flows from north to south, and everything kind of goes to that southern drive approach, so we're asking for some revisions to capture all of that on-site and minimize what's flowing out into the right-of-way. They're proposing an underground detention system. We'll need to add some pretreatment and do that in accordance with Oakland County. And then sanitary and water are already serviced to the site. They'll be connecting in with those leads, so no major additions there. I think that is it. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions? Great. I see there's at least one of the Barbat brothers on the screen with us this evening. I now open the floor to the applicant, and do you have anything to add?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Scott Barbat. I'm the developer and operator, 33477 Woodward Avenue in Birmingham. And my apologies, I believe I was the applicant. I'm not sure, Mr. Carlisle, if I don't recall ever getting any calls with regards to the floor plan. I'm not sure if John Avro maybe got calls. That would have been your department, but obviously we are always very responsive. I don't recall getting any in the past. I'm not sure who they went to. But with regards to the few issues, the floor plan, John Avro has provided a floor plan, a very typical floor plan to most of our stations. Nothing out of the ordinary. The restaurant, the reason why it was vague and just said restaurant is because we had no leases signed with anybody. We were in discussions with a few quick service restaurants, QSRs, which we are in lease negotiations, and we're almost there with one particular one. It's kind of a burger joint. It's a new concept. It's only here in Michigan. They've got about 10 locations. It's the size and the operation is very similar to, say, a Subway or a Jimmy John's. It's mostly takeout. I'd say it's about 90% takeout at their existing stores. They are only in gas stations. We just opened one up last week, and they are with us. They are co-branded with us, doing about 90% takeout. If they can have seating when permitted, they take it. Whether it's just a few stools up on the window or just seating, typically 12 to 16 tables or chairs with tables. but like I said, primarily a takeout restaurant. The name of the franchise is Tasties. I mean, it's like I said, it's like a burger quick service restaurant, doing very well. And it would sit. If you can put up the floor plan, John, if possible, or Kevin, we can kind of just take a look at that right now.
Scott, while they're bringing that up, Scott, can I ask you where that location is? You said you've got one existing now?
It's in Taylor.
Okay.
It's on the corner of Telegraph and Van Born. It was a previous Rite Aid, and we did that along with Stonefield and Avro Design Group. Came out amazing. It's actually got two quick service restaurants in there. On one side, it's got a Soroki's. That's more of a chicken place, fried chicken and pizza, and on the other side, it's got a Tasties. Just opened up last week. So if you look on the south side, I believe, is where the proposed Tasties Burgers is right there. So like I said, we did not have a lease signed yet, so they did not move into interior design, as they were kind of waiting on site plan approval for that. So it would sit right there in that space. John, do you have a preliminary one that we kind of sketched out on how?
For Tasties, no, it was just kind of outlining the space itself. But for Tasties, as you said, Scott, this station was designed to have, high stools, very minimal seating itself. Again, it's more the convenience. I want to make that point. It's more the convenience for people who are traveling. Grabbing a burger, they might just sit down and have their burger there as they're doing a carry-out. But like as you mentioned, they rely on most of the carry-outs, but they do kind of give that option for those to get a high top, those who are on lunch break or in the area for that. But I don't actually have an interior layout for that. So
Yeah, a food component, you see especially all the big chains and all the gas stations, really, it's where it's headed in the future. The synergy is just great. It complements each other. Kind of a one-stop shop. You see all the new speedways. It's mandatory that they put the speedy cafes in. Circle K's got their own food component. Out of state, you can go to the Come and Goes, the Wawas, everybody, all the new stations, they kind of go larger. And that's the main reason why we eliminated the drive-through, because the previous plan that had the drive-through with the escape lane killed most of the property in the back. So I believe that the floor plan on the previous drawing that had the drive-through was somewhere around 12 to 1,400 square foot smaller. So by eliminating that drive-through, gave us a lot more space for the convenience store and for the restaurant itself.
And one more thing to add on that, Mr. Carlisle, you had a question about the usable floor area, as it was one of your bigger questions on the site with the parking requirements. As you can kind of see here, this floor plan does line up almost exactly as intended, with our usable floor area being somewhere around the 50%. So we don't see any issues with the parking requirements. I believe you'll want to see some numbers, and of course we can get those to you and just verify as well. But yeah, as you can see, almost all the usable floor area is right at the immediate entry, where a lot of the rest of the building is back of the house.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner from the Planning Commission?
Is there gonna be entrance? Looks like, the restaurant's in the front, but they don't show any doors in that little protrusion area, so they're gonna come in the center part of the store and then into the restaurant? Or?
Yeah, everybody enters from the center of the building, double sliding doors, automatic sliding doors.
Okay, so there's only the one way in and out, so.
Correct. Aside from a rear door in the back of the house, that would be just for the restaurant and maybe even the gas station to access the dumpster along the back sidewalk there.
Yep.
Ms. Tully, did you have a question?
I just wondered, as a customer, I have to come in to order, and I was wondering about the variety of food that you offer, because the more variety, the more time it seems like it would take.
Well, it's primarily a burger place, so it's about 80% burgers.
If I can make a comment, so the way these burgers are, they're thinner patties. I mean, you can go in there literally by the time you place your order, pay for gas, grab a couple of drinks, I mean, your food is out within, I think, 7 minutes. I mean, for those to cook a burger on a flat griddle, just like when you walk into a Five Guys, I mean, they're pretty quick. These are not charbroiled, they're actually a griddle itself, so they're pretty quick on that. Same thing with fries. I mean, those are all pretty much 5 to 7 minutes max for ticket time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
And-
why you think you have enough parking, because it's just a short time inside?
It
I
is,
think we
I
have
would say
enough-
from when you order to when you leave, just on the food side is probably no more than 3-4 minutes. And if I can add, the dispensers that we have there are Gilbarco Encore S700s. They've got the 11-inch screens on them, and there is an option on those screens to actually order food while you are pumping gas. It's kind of a new thing that we're looking into, and we're implementing that in Taylor right now. And you'd be able to order your food there, and by the time you get inside, after you're done fueling, your order will be ready there for pickup. Charges you automatically on that same transaction that's charging you for your fuel. Kind of neat.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a cool idea.
It is.
As long as it's not annoying, like when you go to those ones where it's like, do you want a car wash? Nope. Are you sure? Yep. Are you really sure? You know, but I'm sure that won't be like that. You guys run a good business. Any questions from the consultants or staff?
I do.
Yeah.
First of all, this is the first that I've seen this, and, that's the reason why I did contact you, and I'm sorry that you didn't get the message, but I called the number on the application and left a voicemail, so I understand why sometimes things don't happen, and that was about 2 weeks ago. I believe you had my review probably about a week ago, and I do think that this is a significant issue. I don't think you have enough parking. You don't meet the parking requirements for what now I understand to be a restaurant use. And if we did speak about that specifically when we met about this or talked about it, I didn't catch it. So, the parking requirements for any type of restaurant use of a quick food nature are more stringent than for just retail space. And because I haven't had a chance to review this in light of that, I can't say at this point that I'm comfortable that they do have enough parking, because I am familiar with the operation that you're talking about. In fact, I have one in a station that's very near where I live, so I've seen those, and I know what you're talking about and have some experience seeing how they operate. So it could, but this is news. This is new information for me.
Because
31 parking spots, and that's including the pumps are 31 parking spots. I mean, I don't
But
think
your
you guys have
calculations on
any-
your plan are not correct then. That's
sorry?
why this is why I raised the question in my review and hadn't received any responses from your team about this issue. And I do that, I raise these questions to give you the opportunity to be prepared if you know that I'm raising a question in that regard. So, that is, that at this point, I'm not prepared to say that the parking is adequate.
Because some
You know what-
people,
I would like it to be, because I know what you guys have gone through to try to redevelop this site.
I don't think we had this many parking spots on the previous proposed development that got approved.
But you didn't have this amount of restaurant area either, and you didn't, and you had a drive-through that peels off a lot of the 80% of the traffic. So,
I think a big point
I
here.
can just speak on our previous developments. Almost the majority of our stations are co-branded like this without drive-throughs, and parking really is never an issue. It's just in and out. And the accessibility and the maneuvering is great on this site, especially with the 2 on Sash Box, like a pull-in, pump, and pull out on the north entrance. And that Walden cut is just tremendous, how much it bettered the site. And we don't want to do that to ourselves, obviously. We don't want anything, overbuilt or anything short on parking. That only hurts our business. From what I see from all my other sites, this is plenty.
Well, I'm glad. But I'm not satisfied because you haven't provided the right parking calculations, and this is the first floor plan that's of any detail that I have seen. And the commission can certainly do what they want to do. It's up to you, but at this point, my recommendation was that this was an issue that needed to be clarified. And I'm not prepared to make a recommendation to you with just getting this clarification tonight when it could have been done a week ago.
Well, is it as, I guess I can ask John. John, do you know the parking calculations for a convenience store of this size with a takeout restaurant?
I can assure you that you haven't calculated. You're counting that restaurant space as under the retail space, and that's not the calculation and by our ordinance.
Mhm. And as we're talking here, I'm trying to go through and provide a preliminary calculation for discussion's sake here to try and aid our decision tonight. One thing I would like to hit on is that I think Scott was kind of alluding to it, is just the overall quickness of the restaurant. And it's not, as I'm looking through these design standards, it seems that they may be a little bit more aligned towards an actual restaurant use, where this is kind of a typical accessory to a lot of the gas station convenience marts. This wouldn't be considered, grabbing food, sitting down, a long-term stay. This is still considered as coming in almost as an extension of the convenience, grabbing your food and leaving the site. So this is still kind of a quick service rather than a restaurant, even a fast food restaurant, where a high percentage of patrons would come, stay, and enjoy their meals. So with that in mind, 30 parking spaces. I've been looking at a few of our other sites as well. 31 parking spaces is more than we've provided, and we've yet to have any issues on other sites. So, without running some detailed numbers for you, it would be our professional opinion that this site is adequately parked. But if you want some more detail, I can try and put that together here as we discuss further.
Well, I think that's the problem, is that we don't have the detailed numbers. We're going off of feelings and anecdotes and hunches. I think we ultimately, at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want something that looks like this, that's going to be wildly successful at this location, but we need assurances moving forward that parking is not going to be an issue. So while we dwell on that, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to put pause on this discussion, and I'm going to open the public hearing before I invite anyone to the podium to speak. Just remind you that we're not going to put a timer on anybody, but if you could stay on topic and address all your comments to the Planning Commission, it would be greatly appreciated. So with that said, the public hearing is open, and anyone who'd like to speak on this matter, I invite you now to the podium for anyone who's in person. Last call for those in person. Seeing no one, is there anyone attending remotely who wishes to speak on this item during this public hearing? Last call. Seeing no response to my request, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. You know that in my other life, I'm involved in site plan review, and I understand things happen, but it's from a procedural perspective, it is frustrating, and it does put staff behind the 8 ball when staff gets material at the 11th hour. We want to make sure that we have an ample time to review and scientifically, so that we can make sure that the board's making an informed decision. So, Dick, I see 2 options. We got to make sure it's gonna park. So one option is postponement and coming back, giving them an opportunity for them to make sure that they're providing accurate information, and we bring it back to the board. The other option is moving this forward, but placing a condition of approval that parking is, they comply either by reducing the number of the square footage, reducing the number of seats, or what have you. I want to do whatever sets the township up for success. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, if this were a minor issue, I'd have no problem, and we don't have a problem if it's a landscaping issue.
Right.
Or, you know, something like that, you know, or the sign dimension. But this is a pretty significant issue.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we're just finding out now questions that we've asked, that were put in writing, and look, I think site circulation and traffic and parking on this site is really critical. It's a high visibility, and we want the Bar Bash to be successful on this site. There's no question about that. But I think it is, you're putting Brian and I and Jason in a difficult position by making your decisions for you.
Yeah.
And that, I'm not comfortable with that, and I don't recommend that.
That's why I asked the question.
Right.
Just to that note, though, given the fact that they're going to need a variance regarding front build two lines, they've got to come. Do they have to come back before us anyways, or?
No. I mean, normally we would have a two-step process. As a matter of fact, you know, we were originally talking about doing this as a conceptual and a final,
Mm-hmm.
but in, you know, out of respect to the applicant having been through before you a number of times, I recommended to Brian, let's do this in a one-step thing, expecting that we were going to have you know, the information that we needed to be able to make a positive recommendation to you. Well, that hasn't happened.
Mm-hmm.
And there hasn't been any communication from the applicant or their representatives in regards to anything that was, you know, put in our review. So, so from that standpoint, I do think they can go ahead and go to the Board of Appeals if that saves them some time, and then come back with a plan. It's either this one or a revised plan that meets parking requirements.
Yeah, I think the goal here is to keep them moving. We're not unnecessarily throwing down roadblocks, but this is a big piece of information, critical to their operations. So, do we have a date yet for the Zoning Board of Appeals?
July 19th.
July 19th.
Mr. Savidan, if I could just
One second.
interject.
One second.
Mhm. Sure.
July 19th.
The next planning meeting is the 23rd?
Yeah, it's the fourth Thursday in July.
The fourth Thursday.
That was moved originally.
Yeah,
Okay.
on July.
Go ahead. Was that John that was talking, or who was that?
Kevin Hefner.
Kevin, go ahead, Kevin.
Engineering.
Yeah.
Apologies. I was just running through some of the numbers and looking at the floor plan, besides the small corner that would be, you know, back of house and exit for all, for both the convenience store and the restaurant, we have about an area of 45 by 20 feet for the restaurant space, which would be 900 square feet. I was looking through the ordinance, and a fast food restaurant would require about one parking space per 60 square feet. So that would leave us with 15 required for the proposed restaurant space. You know, using similar numbers of usable floor area, obviously we can get a for sure number as well for the convenience area, but a typical number of the 50%. That would leave us with about 17 parking spaces, 17 and a half parking spaces. So rounded up to 18, we would need about 33 for the site. Now we have 31, but if you look at the proposed site plan, there's room for possibly 1 to 2 more in the northern row, as well as maybe an additional one in the southern row. So rather than postponing this decision, would it be a viable solution to add it as a condition of approval that we supply those 33 and provide definitive calculations showing that we need 33 parking spaces and add just 2 more to the site plan? There's like I said, the large landscaping islands provide more than adequate area to provide another one or two, depending, my quick math here. So, would that be a viable solution? I don't see one parking space, maybe two, being an issue large enough to really push back a decision that we all kind of agree upon, that this is a major improvement on past approved site plans.
Well, the planning commission makes decisions by resolution, so I'm only one opinion, but I appreciate the math and I appreciate the thoughtfulness, but I just asked my consultant 10 minutes ago if if there was a viable solution for postponement, and he said no. And I'm gonna rely on the professional opinion of our consultant. So I think that this is information that should have been provided to us, so we're not having to do mental gymnastics at the table. But I think there's a path forward to keep you moving. You've got to go before the zoning board of appeals anyways, and we can get you back in front of the planning commission in a timely fashion with all the information that we need, including addressing some of the issues that were identified in the report. But again, we'll have a vote, and that's only my opinion. Does anyone else have anything to add?
I had one question. You had mentioned ground sign. You thought there was going to be one, and there was not one.
There is one currently.
There is one,
it on the
but
site now?
Yeah.
Okay.
it wasn't labeled on the new
It's
print.
it's not shown on the site plan.
And the rest of the sign package, did it conform?
No.
It says sign right there where the current
Oh.
sign is, so.
Okay. Well,
It-
that's the
The bottom line.
monument, right?
Yeah,
there's a
that's the monument sign. Is that what you're talking
And,
about?
No.
and the answer to your second question is no, it does not.
So that would have to be amended as well.
That has to be addressed, yeah.
I think there's a way that this site plan can be revised based on the comments in the report and our discussion, and it comes back really clean after that variance is granted, if it's granted.
Well, and just to add to conceptually, I don't have an issue with the project, I guess. We haven't really talked a lot about it, but the food service, Mr. Ritchie pulled up the website. It looks like good food and obviously a great improvement of the site, so.
I couldn't have said it better. I agree conceptually as well. I think it's a step in the right direction, and I look forward to eating some food here if and when it's done. Anyone?
You don't eat hamburgers.
Well,
There's some vegan stuff in there.
do you have non-meat options between two pieces of bread?
There's a vegan option.
There is a vegan?
Yeah.
All right, we're good.
They've got chicken sandwiches.
All right. They got what?
Chicken sandwiches.
Chicken? That doesn't count either.
If I could say something,
Yeah.
About the signs, yeah, there is an existing monument that we're proposing to keep, but it also says reduce the number of wall signs, only 2 are allowed. If there is a separate restaurant in there, would it mean that the gas station can have 2 and then the restaurant can have 2?
No,
Since
No,
they're
it's
2
all
separate
one building.
entities?
No.
it's all
Two-
one building,
Three
you're allowed
total.
2, and what, I think you can get a variance for a third one.
You're not showing it as separate tenant space. It's all part of the same building.
But it is a separate tenant, but there's just
But
no
it's not,
device
it has no
involved.
external access. Look, I don't want to debate this.
Yeah.
We can debate this on the phone, we can debate it in a Zoom meeting, but not at a planning commission meeting when you haven't thought this through.
Yeah.
But it is gonna be submit as a separate permit, like a building permit. So the idea of possibly moving the project along for just the site plan here, but keeping the restaurant out until that's figured, obviously we couldn't move with drawings or submittals on the restaurant portion until we get that figured out. I thought that was a good idea by Mr. Savidan.
Well, it was a question for the consultant that was answered, so I'll bring this back to the board. I think the path here, I lean on our staff and our professionals for their advice. And I think the path forward here is to address some of the issues that were identified in the report, and including parking, and come back to the planning commission when everything's clarified. So if anyone wants to forward a motion, again, I'm only one vote.
For postponement.
That's what That's what I'm thinking, but again, we speak by resolution.
You know, Brad? You got all the notes, so.
I'll make a motion and PC file 2023-008 petitioner Barbat BP LLC requesting special land use and amended final site plan approval. I recommend that we postpone the file until the next meeting, taking into account the comments of the board, our planning consultant and our engineering consultant in particular with the restaurant use for parking space, the sign package, an exact floor plan of the restaurant, lighting plan. I believe there was an outdoor feature missing as well.
Just clarification of that, yeah.
And from previous meetings, the pylon sign demo. That's it.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Any discussion?
Just have one question.
Yeah.
The one in Taylor, that was on Telegraph, and what was across?
Van Born,
Van Born.
Van Born.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, questions?
I just have I'm just wondering, do you have information on the percent of people that eat in? Or can you get that?
I can ask. Like I said, it's not under our operation, they're tenants, but yeah, I'm sure I can get that info.
Yeah, someone with experience maybe could answer that.
Okay, can you do a roll call
Sure.
vote on this? We'll conduct a roll call vote on this.
Mr. Galley,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie,
Yes.
Chairman Savada,
Yes,
Ms. Tully, yes.
I look forward to seeing the revised drawings. I think this is gonna be potentially a really good addition to the township. Next item is item G, regular business. First item under regular business is item G1, PC file number 2023-006. The petitioner is Bridgewood Church, 6765 Riley Lake Road, Clarkston, Michigan. Parcel number 0808-12602 and 0808-126-007. Zoning is R1R Rural Residential. And the applicant's requesting final site plan approval in order to construct an addition to Bridgewood Church. And Mr. Carlisle, would you summarize this, please?
There were relatively few issues from our perspective that needed to be addressed, and I think the projection on the screen reflects the discussion that we had with the Planning Commission and the Planning Commission's comments, as well as ours, and perhaps Jason's also. The layout obviously remains the same as you saw at a conceptual approval stage. Some of the comments that was to ensure that there was the landscape screening requirements at the rear part of the site. That would be the westerly portion of the site be met, and our review of that indicates that it has been met. We did indicate that there is some slight error in the calculation of the height of the light poles. They cannot be including the base higher than 16 feet, and they're actually there's several, it's a little bit. 20, 16, 17, I don't know, it was a little odd. But I will tell you that the lighting on this site will be very subdued. The fixtures that they are selecting are illuminating a very low level of light. So I think that issue was one that was of question and was addressed. The only question that we had, which was vague on the landscape plan, and I know that I think their landscape architect is here, was one of the questions was the green belt along M15, and there's obviously a substantial amount of vegetation in that southeast corner of the site. They are adding additional landscaping around the detention basin area, but there was notation regarding preservation of additional vegetation that was just not clear to me on the plan. On the Radley Lake, no issues. They meet the greenbelt requirements along there without any issue. And then the only other question we had was the wall sign was a little confusing to me in terms of what I think they're proposing 3 logo signs that are, I think they're 36 square feet in area. And if that is, that is the case, we need some clarification of that. That may slightly exceed the wall sign requirements, but I wasn't really clear, just by area. I just really wasn't clear what the area was because the dimensions didn't come through clearly to me on the plans. Other than that, I think they've done a good job of reflecting what we heard at the last meeting and addressing some of the concerns we heard from the residents with lighting and with landscaping. By the way, the other thing is, and maybe Jason was going to speak to this, but they are extending the paving, correct, to their second entrance. So that's all I have.
Any questions for Mr. Carlisle? Thank you. Mr. Longhurst? Anything to add?
Thank you. Very similar report to Mr. Carlisle. The recommendations from our preliminary review have been addressed with this final site plan submittal, and again, the letter really recommends or just points out all of the additional details and calculations that we're going to be looking for as they move on to final construction drawings. The proposed septic field at the southeast corner of the site will have to go through the Oakland County Health Department along with the well. We did note that they'll just need to coordinate with the building department, the fire marshal for any fire protection needs there. The improvements to Radley Lake Road and the drive approaches will be under the jurisdiction of the Road Commission for Oakland County. And then the stormwater management system is going to outlet to the MDOT right away there along M15. So we did have a few just comments, looking for some additional details on grading. Pointed out a couple areas where the preliminary information that they provided may not quite meet ordinance requirements, but everything that we spelled out, they can easily overcome as they move forward there with the finalizing the design. And then the other items that were really touched on at the last meeting, we want to make sure that the construction drawings demonstrate the overflow from the detention pond and the forebay at the rear of the site, that those are going to be captured on the site and go out into the right of way and not onto adjacent residential properties. So that's repeated again in this report. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Any questions? Thank you. I now invite the applicant to come up and make a brief presentation or address any issues that were brought up. Please introduce yourself to the board.
Sure. My name is Jeff Parker, Jeffrey Parker Architects. I was here a month ago and shared with you just some background about Bridgewood Church. They're doing really well at their church, and so adding on to their building, they want to be really a great partner, to stay a great partner in the community. And so even with the landscaping plan that we're showing, trying to really make things look sharp. So just a couple of questions or clarifications I might add is there were a couple of items that were associated with the port that I'm familiar with, so I'll run over those. We also have the civil engineer here, as well as the landscape architect, to clarify any questions there, as well as the pastors from the church. So just from a couple of things from my standpoint, one of the concerns we talked about last month was having real low lighting levels to be sensitive to the area and the neighbors. And so we did that. We're also trying to, whenever we do projects, try to be energy efficient in what we do. And so we actually put the poles purposely at 20 feet high, just as something to talk about. We can adjust those down if that's what you would prefer, but they're much more energy efficient if you have them at 20 feet, because at the lower lighting levels, you get more spill. And so we'd have to have more light poles to get the same minimum lighting level. So if you would, so I just mentioned that if that's a big deal to have them at 16 feet, we'll redo it and have them at 16 feet. The dumpster gate will clarify. We'll have that on our plans. And then the wall signs, we're planning on having, in your packet, we had a blow-up of this. And we're planning to really just have their logo at each of the 3 entrances. And so that, each one is about 30 square feet, putting a square around that round shape. So facing the MDOT highway, there's 60 square feet of wall signs, and then on the back side, there's a 30-foot one that's facing that primary entrance, just to help identify the main entrances. And I think that's all of the clarifications I have, without being verbose.
So the report indicates that the maximum height for poles is 16 feet, so exceeding that is a big deal, because
Okay.
you're exceeding the maximum standard, and your recourse potentially would be a variance to the zoning board of appeals, but quite frankly, I don't think you're gonna be able to demonstrate a practical difficulty. You could put
Yeah.
16-foot poles
So
and put
sure,
more
we'll
of them.
just change to 16 feet,
Yeah.
and that'll be a contingency. Never hurts to talk about things.
You know what? You can always ask.
Yeah, that's
Right?
it, yeah. So anyway, you can count on, we'll make them 16 feet.
Any questions?
From the review last month, you know, my 2 big things were the washout Rattler Lake roads. It looks like you're paving it up past the crest, so that'll definitely help with that. And the other one was light screening for the neighbors across the highway. And I see on the landscape plan, evergreen screen hedgerow. It
Yeah.
looks pretty tightly packed.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that, I'm sorry.
I don't know if you could describe the plants to me that are in that. Is it, you know, an arb or a boxwood, or what type of plant is that hedgerow out front?
Perhaps, how about if we have the landscape architect
Sure. That's fine.
address that, as well as the issue of trees?
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Patrick Zaremba. I'm here to represent Bridgewood Church. And to answer your question specifically about the variety of the plants, that would be a Mugo pine, which is an evergreen plant. It's low growing. It grows about 4 to 5 feet tall, spreads and is dense. And we thought that was an appropriate plant due to the salt tolerance and the height, that it wouldn't get too tall. And it's deer resistant.
I mean, the typical car headlight's probably anywhere from 2 to 4 feet max off
Yeah, no,
ground.
that would be adequate, yeah.
That's the only question I had about landscaping, if somebody else had one.
Any other landscape questions while we have the landscape architect at the podium?
I did have the question regarding what was being considered as the existing vegetation that meets the greenbelt requirement on M15.
Thanks, Dick. What we did is we went out there to the site, and we counted all the existing trees, and when we got to the total, we stopped counting. That was,
And I do know you can count, I know that.
thank you.
So that would be more in reference to the south end, because it's all existing vegetation?
Well, I think there is actually, go ahead, but
Sure.
there's more than just that, yeah.
There is more than that, and there are additional trees that are scattered amongst there that are high quality. And to the best of my knowledge, and I'll defer to mass grading, but I believe that the intent is to maintain those trees that are along the front of the area. There might be a few trees that might have to be removed, but maybe a couple.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Spencer. I'm with Powell Engineering. I'm doing the engineering. As far as the mass grading along the detention pond, we were going to have to remove a small area of trees. We are protecting anything within the edge of the road and the right-of-way. We are not doing any removal of trees within the road right-of-way. So within the road right-of-way, we are leaving everything that's there. It's not shown. Just on the edge of the property, right where the property starts, I have to start an embankment up in order to create the necessary stormwater retention area that we're gonna have there to meet the WRC requirements for stormwater retention. So yeah, there will be some trees that are within the property that will have to come out in the detention pond area. Obviously, they'll have new trees put in around the detention. But yes, we are protecting anything in the right-of-way and anything to the south of the basin.
So there won't be any additional grade or removal proposed utilities or anything like that that would disrupt them?
No, there's no utilities in that area. And we're leaving the existing stormwater outlet as it currently exists. We're not touching anything in the right-of-way for the stormwater outlet. We're tapping into the exact same line that's currently leaving, so.
Thank you. That's why I asked for clarification, because the existing trees, there was some things that I wasn't clear about. The intent is that the condition, they won't be impacted, they'll be left there, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I guess, Jason, as far as you're concerned, the detention basin is proper size and everything?
Yeah, everything looks feasible, and we'll get through the detailed calculations as part of the next step, but everything looks to be sized appropriately.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
This is not a public hearing, but I'd be remiss is there anyone in the audience who wants to come to the podium and speak briefly on this? This is your chance to come up. Okay, seeing no one. Just thought I would ask.
Still one person online.
Is there anyone online who has some brief comments?
He's with us.
Okay, he's,
right.
okay. Want to make sure I asked. Okay, bring it back to the board for consideration. I think it's a thoughtful design, thoughtful approach, and they've done everything that was asked of them to do, and they're willing to lower the pole height. Not that they had a choice, but,
Well, I know some people think I make things up sometimes, but it is actually in the ordinance, you know?
we ready for a motion?
Well, just one comment. I think at the last meeting, there was quite a bit of talk about the stormwater runoff from the road, or even the side street as well. But I think, obviously by paving it up past the crest there and everything, it's not going to necessarily help water runoff, but it's going to help stuff washing down the road onto M15 or down the ditch of M15 and everything. So I mean. I looked at the site, there is not, I don't know what you would do to mitigate that. It's, this is running off the road, whether you did anything or not, the stormwater's there, so.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think we've done everything, like you say, that we've asked them to do, so.
Did anyone write down some ideas for a motion?
I'll move forward on PC file 2023-006, petitioner Bridgewood Church, requesting final site plan approval in order to construct an addition to the Bridgewood Church. That I motion that we give them final site plan approval with the comments of the planner and engineers statements, as well as board statements.
I'll second that.
Second.
I beat you to it. Motion and second. Do we want to discuss this at all? Anyone have any ideas?
I'll just
Yeah.
add one thing. You usually mention it, the fire letter about the suppression system
Adding that
to
in
the
as well,
motion.
yeah. Comments from the fire department as well.
I support that. I'll second that. So the motion's been clarified and supported. So we're ready for a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Galley,
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Chairman Sabada?
Yes.
Ms. Tully, yes.
Congratulations, you have final site plan approval with a couple of easily achievable conditions. We move on to item G2, PC file number 2023-005. It is a proposed zoning ordinance text amendment, and we're discussing a draft language for section 5.11, maintenance of farm animals. What? I didn't hear that.
He called him out.
You don't wanna hear it, so.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
didn't need
he's
to
the
hear
guy that came in at the last meeting for.
That was really rude.
because we're corrupt.
Wow,
Well, it was worse than that.
I'm glad I didn't hear that. I was busy
Yeah,
reading the item. Sorry you had to hear that, Dick.
That's okay.
Thank
See ya. How'd they get you out here tonight, by the way? How'd they get you out here tonight, by the
Be
way?
the guy that has the Joe Biden sign.
Special place in heaven, right?
That explains it.
Because he listed everything he saw.
I'm doing chickens now, right?
You're doing chickens now, yes.
Goodbye, Jason. Well, we have presented you with draft regulations to allow the raising and keeping of chickens in residential districts. Megan is our go-to person on this, and she did draft these regulations, which I did review. In summary, this would allow chickens to be kept on lots of 1 acre or greater in all of the residential zoning districts. There would be an annual license that would be issued by a general ordinance, which is attached to this. When it is applicable, permission would be required from a homeowners association or condo board. In the absence of that, there wouldn't be any. If there is no board, you can't require approval from anyone. The minimum setback would be 25 feet. That is in variation with the current setback for Class 3 animals, which is 75 feet, which, if you think about it, in a lot that's like 100 or 125 feet would be impossible to meet, okay? So attached to this is a licensing ordinance, which would be an amendment to the, now, we're bringing this to the commission because this is your issue to make recommendation. Normally, general ordinances would just go right straight to the township board, but because there is, attached to this, there's an amendment to the zoning ordinance that makes reference to this, we felt that it's appropriate for the planning commission to weigh in on this and make a recommendation. So this gets down to the specifics. The general requirements allow up to 4 hens on parcels of not less than 1 acre in the residential zoning districts. The principal use must be a single-family dwelling. In other words, you can't raise chickens on a vacant lot. It's gotta be accessory. The owner has. Chickens that are kept as family, they must be kept as family pets or to lay eggs for personal consumption only. Rooster or male chickens or any other type of class of fowl or poultry are prohibited. Where applicable, annual approval, as I mentioned, from a homeowners association. The annual permit comes from the township, and all other requirements of this met. The balance of this is procedural in nature of section 8.44 about the application process. 8.45 lays forth the standards about where a coop or pen, how it must be designed, and where it must be located. I won't get into every detail on that unless you have questions. The height of the fencing is an issue. It does have a separation requirement from the nearest dwelling unit, but which is greater than the property line. So that does provide protection for the neighboring residents. There is also additional requirements regarding how the chickens are to be kept. That's an 8.846, and it's essentially, kept in a safe, healthy, and a manner that doesn't create nuisance for property owners, neighboring property owners. There is issues in here, there is language in here for violations. And then in the zoning ordinance, we make reference to these revised provisions that go into the general ordinance. So the general ordinance would supersede what's in the zoning ordinance as a licensing ordinance subject to these standards. So I think this reflects some of the discussion, if not all the discussion we had with commissioners at the last meeting. But I'll be happy to take comments and any suggestions that you have about this.
Comments or questions? Go for it.
I thought it was very good. You know, when I read it and I was thinking about it, and I thought, well, just like most things, it's gonna be up to the common sense of the individual that owns the chickens. We could regulate the heck out of it, but like as far as the feed and dead birds, et cetera, it's up to the common sense of people to dispose of them properly. And since they do have to apply for a permit once a year, that's probably the best as a township we could do. I was thinking. That's all I had to say about that.
My comment in reading all this is, you know, it talks about the pen and the run or whatever has to all be fenced and enclosed with the top. But no place in there does it say you have to keep the chickens in the coop. So I just want to make sure that it doesn't
Okay.
allow for the chickens to roam free outside.
Haven't you ever heard of free-range chickens? Okay.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying, you know, we talk about the enclosure and it's fenced and
Yeah.
all that, but it doesn't say, you know,
Yeah.
they have to stay
Okay.
in that area as well. So I guess, because theoretically you could have that, but the chickens are just roaming around your backyard.
That's typically where we get the complaints, is
Right.
ones wandering down the street, you know, so.
Well, I'm just saying, after I read everything, I didn't really see anything where.
Okay, yeah, it's a good point.
You gotta have all this stuff, but it doesn't say you have to keep the chickens in it, so.
It's where you keep your kids when they get unruly, you know, I mean.
They can wander over my yard and then they'll go back. Be eating it.
I think it was very, very well written. And just from living in the area forever, and I lived in Oakhurst for 12 years, unbeknownst to me, 2 of my neighbors had chicken coops that were, I was like, oh, I thought that was your daughter's backyard playset. Oh, no, we've been having fresh eggs for 10 years. I didn't even know they were there. So, again, a responsible owner took care of them, and nobody even knew. So I think it's out there. I think something like this would, you know, possibly bring people into compliance, but it also gives enforcement of the compliance as well. Gives
Yes.
more enforcement.
It's that balance that we try to hit.
And it doesn't open it up to
No.
subdivision parcels, obviously, unless it's one of the old legacy subs. But again, I think I
Well, they
mentioned
still
here,
have
like
to get
farms in
permission,
particular,
yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
have an accessory structure in that
Yeah. I
without
mean,
sub-approval, so.
correct.
Just, go ahead.
I had a question about the order that the information is gathered in. So where does the homeowners association come in? Because I would hate to see a lot of work done and then there are rules, you know, that the association has.
Well, that was, I mean, that's why it's, the burden is placed upon the applicant to get homeowners association approval and has to provide such approval, proof of approval to Brian's office to obtain a permit.
It's typical of any building permit.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that's required when they come in.
So you do that early, so a
It'd
lot
be
of,
submitted with the application.
I see.
Because I think the way we're gonna treat it, because we've been talking about this internally, is just we have what's called a residential land use permit. So that's essentially for a shed or something like that. That's the way we're gonna treat this. And it'd just be a land use permit, and we follow the same procedure there, whether you're doing a shed or it's gonna be chickens.
And Brian, you might want to, expand a little bit on that. I mean, do you use BSNA to issue those permits?
Correct.
And so that now becomes a permanent part of the property record, so that the township, has access, and there's a record of the fact that that permit's been issued for a particular piece of property. The department will know, there'll be a mechanism in there to know when a certain permit is expired and, you know, has a mechanism to enforce the annual permit, so.
And it's also, we can set up the inspections in advance, because this calls for an inspection once a year. So we inspect it when they first get the permit, we go out and inspect it to make sure it's in compliance. And then there'll be a follow-up inspection that we'll set at some point during the year to follow up. And then, you know, obviously, we'll have a placeholder there for when it expires.
Yeah.
Yeah, and see, I don't know, do you contact the association for the information?
No, it's up to the applicant to do that.
Yeah, because some of the people who live, you know, in area covered by the association probably don't even know all the rules.
Very
And
true.
if you've ever looked at the association rules.
But that's
So-
also, excuse me, Judy, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was gonna say, but that's also part of the annual approval process. Like if there's complaints from the neighbors or even the homeowner association, like say they didn't give their permission or whatever, then that's part of, I guess, revoking their approval or not granting their approval again, subsequent to that, so.
Yeah, but we don't want people putting in fencing and building coops and then have to wait till the next year to
No.
discover that's a problem.
No, I mean, if there's a complaint and they're in violation of something, it should happen immediately. But I guess I'm getting at is that at the least it should be is say a year from that date, that if somebody complains about it or makes note of it from the homeowners. And like say,
So we're gonna
I
have.
don't know, Brian, do we still allow like homeowner associations to register with the township to,
Yeah,
That used to be held in the supervisor's office, and we used to have a copy of that. It changes every year. That's the difficulty of knowing exactly who to contact.
keeping that updated, right?
Yeah, it's very difficult.
But the homeowner association can contact the township and, you know, say they wanna be alerted of anything and then going in there.
Yeah, I believe I think we still have something on the website to contact, I think, the supervisor's office to register your new officers and things like that.
oh, okay.
I just don't know if anybody really has done that.
And then my other question was, I was trying to understand number 7 on the last page. It sounds like once they're approved, it's really difficult to change that, even if there are problems. Am I reading that wrong? See, if you read 7.
No more difficult than any other enforcement issue. You talking about the sentence that starts, "A nuisance shall not be created"?
That paragraph and at the end of
Yeah.
it.
We have to, I mean, the reason that this is as lengthy as it is because it has to be, that we have to give people, you know, I mean, we have to be very explicit about enforcement activities, that way, you know, if and when we have to go to district court, the judge will know, you know, to the lengths that we have gone to provide notification and follow due process and all of that stuff, to correct a violation.
So this is kind of the standard
Yeah,
Yeah.
talking?
yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I would suggest that reaching out to the homeowners association is going above and beyond, to be honest, because you've got to hope that there's a registered HOA. Is it active? Is the membership list up to date? Do they have regular meetings? Are they going to consider the request in a timely fashion? I think it's almost, in a way, it's a little bit unfair to have the applicant rely on an HOA, because if the president doesn't like the idea, then they don't hold a meeting. Like, it becomes a whole onion. But
Well, the problem
it's all
is, though,
written.
yeah, I understand that, but the thing is that there are a lot of association, master deeds and bylaws or deed restrictions that prevent this from
Yeah.
occurring.
Right.
And so, this is really partly to avoid another enforcement issue that
Right.
we get dragged into, because we don't enforce deed
Yeah.
restrictions in condominium documents, so.
yeah, that's what I'm getting at, is
Yeah.
it's really, ultimately, it's a private matter, but I appreciate that requirement. It helps
Yeah,
helps, it helps staff.
Well, the fact that Mr. Galley mentions that in Oakhurst, and I'd be kind of shocked if there weren't certain restrictions in that,
Oh, there are.
in
Yeah.
those bylaws, that master deed and bylaws, but,
But
you
if
know.
somebody directly next to you doesn't complain about it, how a lot of,
Yeah.
you know, if you have a walkout backyard
But
or
you know,
something,
I
people
mean,
can't see it.
if the association, if the board says, oh, we have no problem with this, we're not gonna go back and research their master, if they're not enforcing their master deed and bylaws, that's not up to us to tell them,
Correct,
so.
happens
Yep.
more than you think.
One question, if, someone gets denied this, can they appeal it? And if so, how do they appeal it?
It, mean under this ordinance, they'd.
Yes. Is it a
well, they'd have-
Variance?
Pardon me?
Variance with the zoning board of appeals?
Administrative decision
No, no?
to the Board of Appeals.
Okay, great question, I'll have to answer that. It may be appealed to the township board, or, we'll have to I'll have to think about that a little bit, that's a great question.
I just don't think we're in a position where we want to create a
Yeah,
chicken appeal board. It's hard enough to get volunteers for planning commission and other boards than create another one.
Can't you appeal any ordinance or rule at the ZBA, or no? There's
no,
limitations to it?
not generally, not general ordinances.
Yeah,
Not something that's a general ordinance of the townships, you know. In fact, we do very specifically put language in a lot of general ordinances that it's, you know, it's, the township board has the right, the final, you know, is the final board of appeal on a general ordinance. And
okay.
I need to look into that a little bit. This, by the way, has not been reviewed by the township attorney,
Yeah.
so it hasn't been put in any final form because we just haven't gotten to that point here with that.
Yeah,
But-
yeah.
Okay.
And we're really early, but we've had a resident who's been at every meeting where this has been talked about. So this is not a public hearing, hasn't been reviewed by the city attorney. But if you briefly have any comments on this, you're welcome to come up.
Okay.
Okay. I just want to make sure
Okay, good.
you've shepherded this all along, and I just want to make sure that you had a chance, so, yep.
Now's not the time to be silent.
Did you, here I am having a conversation with the audience. Did
Yeah.
you have a chance to review it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. So I think it's,
How do we put this into a motion?
well, do you want the city,
No,
the
I
attorney to
figured-
look at it first? and
Yeah,
then-
no, I think at this point, you've given me more feedback. I don't believe there's any need for any motion other than for us to further address some of the issues that have, I don't think you need to give me a motion. I have some direction from you. I think it's, we will address those things. I will talk to Mr. Kelly's office and see if he wants to review it at this point. But we will have to have a public hearing before this planning commission, because we are amending the zoning ordinance to make an exception from the zoning ordinance regulations that refers to this ordinance. So in my mind, you will have to consider both things when you hold a public hearing on it.
Okay,
Okay, I think that'd be the wise thing to do.
making a recommendation for both.
Correct.
And that would just be for board review. We're not approving it, correct?
You're gonna make a recommendation? No.
To the
Yeah,
board,
That's
yes.
right.
Excellent. Have you got enough feedback from us?
I have, thank you.
Okay, we'll close out that item then and move on to item H, approval of minutes. H1 is the regular meeting minutes, May 11th, 2023. Do they, motion, this?
Yes, I recommend approval of the planning commission minutes of May 11th, 2023, with the following comments. On page 2, under public hearing, these are just a couple of small changes, but if you look down to like the 6th line or so, I just want to change no clear to not clear, and then take out at the end of that paragraph, this needs to be addressed, because it's a double sentence. It says this needs to be addressed, this needs to be addressed.
What page is that?
Page 2. at the first paragraph. It's just cleaning up a couple of things which I don't usually bother with, but
Okay.
Okay? And with those suggestions, are you moving these minutes to be approved?
yes.
I'll second Ms. Tully's motion.
We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. Galley,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie,
Yes.
Chairman Savada,
I'll abstain.
Ms. Tully, yes.
4 votes approved. I wasn't in attendance at that meeting, so
You
We-
didn't watch it on TV?
believe it or not, I did not. Next item is item I, consultants reports, master plan update.
Yeah, since we have struck out with trying to get something scheduled with the chamber, what we have decided to do, which really kills a couple of birds with one stone, is actually have a joint workshop meeting with the CIA and the new DDA. That way we'll be able to discuss what we were trying to get at with both Sashbaugh Road and Dixie Highway. The other thing that this does, and of course the planning commission's going to be, asked to attend that also. We don't have a date because we've gotten into summer now, so we're trying to find a time that will be suitable. We also felt that it was gonna be a good thing for the CIA and the DDA to meet so that our new DDA could benefit from some of the experiences of the CIA and be able to make those kind of acquaintances too. But we will be talking about master plan subjects in both cases, so. We're not holding up starting doing drafting, but we felt like we needed to get through this, so. It's going slowly, I realize.
In, just, what would you view as a time frame for like a initial draft? I mean, is it gonna be
Probably
late summer, early
by
fall?
end of
or-
summer, yeah, early fall. Yeah, I mean, I think we've done everything, we've got everything we need. It's just a matter of trying to finish this up but Megan and I have spoken, and she is starting to do some drafting of the plan itself, so, okay? Thank you.
Just to reiterate, the next meeting is not the second Thursday, it's the
Fourth.
fourth Thursday.
Yes.
It's the 27th.
Yes, that's correct.
Just to let everybody know that it's coming off.
She's gonna be here, I can't.
I know Brian decided he was going on vacation, that's why he moved it.
Vacation, then conference. So,
Which conference?
Esri,
Oh, nice.
user conference,
Hopefully it's someplace warm.
San Diego.
That's warm.
Yeah, so it is the 27th.
Okay. It sounds like we've morphed into item J, discussion.
Then we're back to schedule.
Just, Commissioners, I felt we needed to take a hard line on that first agenda item tonight because it had plenty of opportunity to
Yeah.
respond. It was vague, and, I mean, this parking is a big deal
Mhm.
on that site.
Agreed.
And this was a complete surprise. Hadn't heard,
I received the floor plan at about 5:30
yeah,
tonight.
nothing about this restaurant, and that's why I raised the question to begin with. So,
I think we did the right thing. I had to ask the question,
yeah, no, fine,
and I got a
yeah,
response,
yeah.
proper response.
Yeah, plus, they seem to think that that's a big site with lots of area for movement, but to me, it's pretty tight.
Yeah, well, I'm just not comfortable until I have it, have the information in front of me to be able to tell you that what they're telling you is correct. I'm to have their consultant sit there on the fly and make parking calculations when he obviously didn't look at that provision of the ordinance to begin with.
Yeah.
It's just
Every time-
inappropriate.
Every time we have an applicant that comes in and just, they think they're doing the right thing, but it doesn't have anything to do with our regulations.
No.
Then it always ends up being a problem in the end.
Well, yeah,
So-
and then trying to talk their way through it, here. And they had adequate time to respond.
I'm really upset and disappointed by a resident thinking it was a good idea to speak an expletive to our consultant on the way out the door. It's just classless and
Yeah, I agree. I've just been upset by
it's
that.
unacceptable. It really, it's a scary world we're living in 2023. And for someone to be able to just walk, and we're volunteers, you're helping us do, you're helping us do our jobs, and it's not acceptable for you to have to listen to that. It's just not right. And it's the brazenness of some people, it's inexcusable.
Plus, you should have directed it at us, right?
Oh, well, I think he probably
Yeah,
did.
because he, yeah.
But he was in the back of the room when he started with that, and he got to me, he just
Yeah.
unloaded, so.
So anyways, sorry you had to hear that, Dick.
No,
I concur.
I'm sure he's used to it.
Any other discussion?
I just had one question. Do we need to file an annual report as a planning commission?
Someone's been taking class.
He did.
So,
The answer to that is technically yes. The reality of it is, you have an excellent record of what you do through the minutes that are online. Now, you couldn't have said that maybe
10 years ago.
10 years ago, but your activities are very well documented in your minutes. Technically, the law says you're supposed to file an annual report. I don't know anybody that does it, to tell you the truth, Tom. Do you?
uh-huh.
Well, good for you. You get a gold star.
And it's posted on our website, annual reports.
All right, well then, we'll
And
have,
we make sure when any application that goes has to go to the township board, they get the minutes from these meetings, as part of the package. So they're well prepared to make a decision.
Yeah, if you wanna find out about an item, our website has a lot of information. Brian does a nice job with it. You have about 80 municipal clients? How many communities, now you know the answer is at least one, prepare an annual report? Not very many,
only one.
only one.
Woo! I'm sure there are, but
Yeah,
I'm not aware of very many that really make a point of doing it.
there's
It's
also,
mostly the commissions that don't have anything else to do.
there's also a requirement that the planning commission review and approve an annual capital improvements plan.
Yeah.
We don't do that either. But there's even fewer communities that do that, because we don't do that.
I know, even though I've tried.
We tried,
Yeah.
we might go back to that, so it's a good idea,
Yeah.
so, anything
But if
else?
Commissioner Pytel, if
If
you
I
would
want
like
to,
that to be the case,
I can go ahead.
we can certainly start doing that.
I'm gonna look at Troy's as an example.
Yep.
Exactly.
Go to the planning commission page, it's right there. All right, with that, I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting at 7:28 PM.
Support.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Adjourned. Nice job.